Hello, my friends, and welcome to Board Game Nation. My name is Gary Blevins. I am your host for the evening. We have a very special event this evening. We are trying not one, not two, but 47 different things tonight to try to test out a couple of different pieces of technology, a couple of new pieces of software. We got Brian and Adam, our competitors in the final of the Spring Gathering last year, as well as the semifinal at the World Championship in 2025. They're here and eager to talk with us about the game. Of course, my friend and yours, Mr. Doug Thorpe, is also in the wings. A couple of things that we wanted to cover before we get too far down the line. This live stream is open to the public right now, and it's going to be open to the public for the next few minutes, but then we'll be transitioning from there to make it member only. This was this particular live stream is, or the production of this video, I should say it that way, is basically a thank you to our members who charged into a challenge that I gave them that wasn't apparently nearly challenging enough. I said, if we get to X number of members, we'll make this video. And like within 8 minutes, we had that many members. And then I said, okay, if we do that, then we'll make this one too. And then like 8 minutes after that, we had that number of members. So thank you, which is amazing. We're so grateful for all of that. We really, really appreciate it. But at the same time, we're working on a couple of different ways to do it. So this one is a thank you to our members. We appreciate all that you have done to support the channel. But we wanted to get a chance to get it started with everybody here in case there were gift memberships that came in or people wanted to see kind of what was going on. But we will be, before we get into the game, we'll be transitioning into a member-only format. There'll be a little bit of a countdown timer, and then we will we'll go from there. If you're curious as to how to become a member, there should be a little join button on the live stream underneath where on whichever mode you're looking at. If you're on your phone, there should be a little join button. You click on that. You can pick the membership level that's right for you and become a member. We just got a new citizen just now. Swank Knight 21 just became a member. Thank you very much. And we appreciate that support. Thank you so much for being here. The good news is that what we are recording tonight is essentially the behind the scenes for how we make all of our play-by-play videos, okay? So normally what happens is me and Doug and sometimes a guest and sometimes it's just the two of us, but what we do is we set up the slides, the pictures in the background, and then we go through them, we kind of talk through them, and then I take that conversation and the slides and then edit that all together in DaVinci Resolve. And that's the product that you see in the end. But we end up with a lot of information on the cutting room floor, a lot of commentary ends up falling, but also like errors and stuff like, oh, no, that doesn't make any sense at all, Gary. Why would you even have said that? No, that's a typo. So those things happen and those things get edited out. But what you're going to see tonight is the raw version of that. So it will have all of the commentary that we would otherwise, some of which otherwise would have been edited for the final product, because we try to keep those to a reasonable length, right? But so you'll get all of that, but there's also going to be errors, right? So this is not going to be a perfect presentation. Like I said, we're working through a couple of different pieces of technology and so forth, but we are recording all of this, of course, and we will be taking those and producing that final video, right? So you will still get a chance to see the final video that's our full coverage of this game. So you can keep an eye out for that. So it'll be a little bit, probably about a week and a half, maybe. So Jamie is moderating this evening. She is at home though this evening because she's packing up, because tomorrow morning we're headed off to see our grandkids for a couple of days. We'll be back on Wednesday. And so she's moderating from home, but she's here in the chat. Great to see you, my love. Thank you for being here. But yes, she's just reminded me, as all good moderators do. An error occurred with the ISO recording. It has stopped. So speaking of errors, we've had our first technical concern here. It said that it has stopped recording. Let me make sure that that is doing what we're wanting it to do. So what I was about to say is that this is part 1 of 2. So tonight we're going to get through about half of the game. And then next Friday, we'll be back with the same basic, hopefully, depending on how all this tech works, the same basic format. And we'll be finishing the game. So we'll do the second half of the game next week. Normally, when Doug and I do this by ourselves, it takes about 4 hours for us to get all the way through a full game. And that's too long for a live stream. Honestly, it's too long for us. Every time we sit down to go through, we're like, man, we got to figure out how to do this faster. So I didn't want everybody to have to be on for 4 hours. So we're going to cut it into two pieces, and then we'll have the second part next Friday, and then probably within the following week we'll have the rest of the thing. So we'll have it all put together. So now I have to make sure that we are still recording, because if we're not recording, this is going to be a lot harder. Let me make sure that this is doing what we want it to do. Final, okay. I think we're okay. Yeah. Now I'm wishing I'd have done that, but that's okay. All right, we'll work it out. All right, so I hope that makes sense. We've got a lot of great folks in the chat already. Dave DeJour is here. Brian Hyde. General Hyde is here. Rick Gibson is here. Great to see you guys. Lots of folks already excited about Battlefront Dayton, which is set for November 6th through the 8th. We're going back to the Hope Hotel. And we can announce now that Matt Hyra, the senior game designer from Renegade Game Studios, designer of Stalingrad and North Africa, and the Commander cards, and of course dozens of other games, will be back and joining us to be demoing his games and everything else that's coming out this year. So we're excited about that. We've got other special guests that we are nailing down the final details for. And once we have those, we will be sharing that information forthwith. So we're excited about that. It should be a lot of fun. I should mention now that about 15 minutes before it was time to go live, I discovered that my AC isn't working. And so if you see me dabbing off from time to time, that's why. So it's a little bit warm in here. But speaking of the studio, I wanted to try to do something a little different today. Kind of a thank you again to the members. Lots of people asked for behind the scenes material, and so we thought we would give that a try. I've got a rover here that I'm going to try to switch to now and take a quick walk around the studio, and you guys can see kind of what we are about and how you can, and what I see, right? So I make this joke that it looks like I'm doing air traffic control back here. People laugh at me, but you'll see what I mean. So let me switch over to our roving camera here and see how this works. Okay, so this is what I see. So I have Ecamm up. That's the live stream software. These are the chats over here. I've got YouTube up in the background running down in the corner so that I can control, or so I can see the comments and how far the lag is behind. Right now we're probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 seconds behind. So it keeps up the, it allows us to buffer. That's really kind of how that works. And then of course we'll be using Keynote today. And so that is up here. So we'll have that. We'll be using that today. And this is our new toy. We're putting this guy to the test today. I'm not sure he's going to work on this. No. So there's a little bit of a spoiler as to how that's going to work, but it's not working on this screen, but that's okay. It'll work on the other screens. So this is what I see. And this is where we charge everything, all of the madness that we keep running around here. This is our sign from Dayton. Access and Allies HQ from Dayton. There we go. And of course, we still have and love our War Room game. I hope that made the audio a little bit better. No, my studio is not in it's not in my house. We're not in a storage unit, but it is. It's basically before we rented this space, it was like a vintage shop. So like it's got big windows, but we block them all out, of course, because we don't want the light in here as we're trying to work. But ooh, look what we just got. Ooh. We haven't even cracked the plastic on that bad boy yet. We're excited about that one. That one's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have some fun with that game. But anyway, so lots of fun stuff on the shelf. Renegade just sent us a new copy of Commanders, or a fresh copy of Commanders, so we'll have that as a prize soon. So coming out from behind the desk, there's a little bit of a spoiler heads up for our next projects. We're getting ready to start making our global coverage from the 2025 World Championships. So we'll have that. That's something we're working on now. So you get kind of an idea of what that setup looks like. And that one's a monster. That one takes a long time to rebuild those individual games. We got lots of tech, mayhem, of course a big map, and those are the kids' dice. We got the monitors, my little kitchen, which is fun. This is normally where Jamie sits, but like I said, she's at home today. This is where I make the replays, take the pictures for the anniversary game. I don't have any of those in production right now because we're trying it this way. Me and that teleprompter spent a lot of time screaming at each other back and forth, for sure. So that's kind of how it works. Oh, and one other thing, in the basement is my studio mates. So it's a 2-story space. You've got the basement. That's Red Dot Photo Works. I suggest checking out his work. He's a tremendous photographer and a really, really good dude. So if you get a chance to check that out, I highly recommend. So yeah, so there we go. So that is your walk around of the Board Game Nation Studios. Any questions? Any thoughts? Anything that you were curious about? Oh, the gray Tupperware, the clear Tupperware thing. Whenever we go to visit the kids, we take a box of casual games to play with them, and so that's what those are. We got Robo Rally, Photosynthesis, a really fun game from Academy Games called Reality Shift that we like, and of course everybody likes Wingspan, so we bring those along. And decks of cards, and I think we got a copy of Catan in there, and Cosmic Encounter. So we have some fun. So yeah, people have been asking for a long time for a little behind the scenes, and that seems to be today's theme. The theme of today's live stream is behind the scenes. So there you go. There's Board Game Nation Studios. Let me know if you have any questions, and it's yes, but I don't live here. This is a separate studio space that we rent. That Goose, Dreadnought Photo Works. His name is Kerry Maiden, but he goes by Goose, and we share the space. He has the whole basement area because he's a photographer. The light control is much more important for him than it is for me. I can take a little bit of light off the windows and it's fine, but he needs, for his work, he needs a lot more control of the light. So he takes the basement and I take the main floor, and it's not huge, but it works for us, and it usually does a pretty good job. So that's what we're doing. Oh, we got some gift memberships. Miss Tracy Hyde, General Tracy Hyde, is in the house and has offered 5 Board Game Nation memberships to make sure that people can stay on with the party when we transition to member only. So we got a couple of 5 new folks that are going to be joining. Thank you very much, Miss Tracy. General Tracy Hyde, ladies and gentlemen, is in the house. So awesome. So from there, we've covered the insides. I'm managing expectations as to how smooth this is all going to go. I hope it goes well, but like I said, we're experimenting on a couple of things, and hopefully it'll work itself out. So, all right, let's bring in my friend and yours. Let's see, Mr. Doug Thorpe. Hey.
Hey, Gary. Hey, everybody. It's good to be here.
Gotta have the glockenspiel. Glockenspiel for Doug Thorpe.
That's right.
All right. Yes. So what is my day job? These are all good questions, Rick. This is what I do. So I make these videos, and I had another business last year, but due to budget cuts from the Department of Education and a lot of companies that were affected by tariffs, some of those projects that I was working on went away. So this is what I do full time, and we're working on a couple of new projects that hopefully will make that make that a little bit easier. So, but more on that later. But thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. I'm gonna get rid of that thing. I'm tired of looking at it. All right, cool. And thanks for coming to Battlefront Dayton. Awesome. Excellent. Okay, so this game that we're going to talk about today, Spring Gathering. So this is kind of in the Wayback Machine, right? So this Spring Gathering last year, and it was a monster. It was
a game.
It was a fun game. Like this is the first time Brian and Adam had played me and Doug, right? Now they had watched our videos, but this was the first time they'd seen this particular strategy that we played, right? So, and it was, and this, like I said, this is also the first time we played them. They did a couple of things that we hadn't seen before, so it was a really exciting game, and there was some like insane dice in this game, and literally last roll.
Yeah, this is like the precursor to our semifinal match against them in the World Championship, really.
Right.
Like,
you can think of this as a prequel.
This is the prequel. This leads to that.
Right. No, that's all right. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. So without any further ado, then let's bring on Mr. Brian and Adam and welcome them to the show. Hey guys, what's happening?
Hey, how's it going? Well, it looks like Adam might be frozen.
Adam may be frozen. We clapping for a person.
Deeply.
Right. Otherwise, he might just be ignoring us. I'm not 100% sure. See, this is what happens when you practice. Like, oh, we lost him altogether. Let's see. All right. Go to 3 people.
I feel like I'm in the crosshairs.
Here we go. He's back.
All right.
And he's
you
moving.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Hello. Good to see you all. Thank you.
You know, I knew there was a delay in this. I just didn't know it was that long. You're really lagging there, brother. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. Anyway, we got another 5 Board Game Nation memberships from the other General Hyde. General Brian Hyde has offered 5 memberships too. Very nice. Thank you very much, sir. Keeps 5 more folks in there. Brian Conway, Christopher Chaffee, Meister 2, Colonel Bryce, Darth Dexter. That's a fun name. Darth Dexter. Kind of its own little tongue twister. Awesome. So we appreciate that. So I'm trying to remember, guys, was this your first Spring Gathering?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what were you expecting when you came to the Spring Gathering for the first time? Because the next one's just around the corner. So this may be a good precursor for folks that are interested in going to the Spring Gathering.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think back. It feels like a lifetime ago. To like a time before I knew what the Spring Gathering was, because we had such a great time there. But I think it was, honestly, my expectations were a little low for it. I didn't, I hadn't heard about it previous, and so I thought it was going to be, like, I didn't know how many people were going to be there, how big a tournament it was going to be, and it, blew those expectations away, for sure.
Yeah, I think we had, 40 people, 45 people last year. Yeah.
I'd say right about the same for me. It was I was expecting a much smaller gathering than Gen Con, obviously, because it's just Access and Allies focused, really. But it was right on what I was expecting. The room was a little smaller than I was expecting, but it was still good. It was comfortable. There's a lot of guys there. You could see a lot of people. And so you really got to know everyone a little bit better there. So it was awesome.
Yeah, it's close quarters in there. Particularly like once it was sold out, which they did sell out last year, which I'm pretty sure is like 45 people. So it was, it gets a little, you could definitely get to know people because you're in close proximity. But no, it's a lot of fun. It's a great event. I'm looking forward to it this year. Doug and I will be playing again this year at the Spring Gathering. And yes, I'm being told now that I need to grow a beard. No, I'm not doing that. I had a beard for a long, long time, and I'm like No, it's too hot. I live in Memphis, guys. Like it's 1,000% humidity, and it's too hot. Like
I mean, I'm down in Atlanta. I know humidity and hot.
yeah, I know, but I did for a
I'm thinking
long
about
time.
David
I wore
Blueberry and hot lately.
yeah. When my hair gets too long, I can tell the difference. Like
Wow.
I get all hippie and like can't deal with it. No. It's too hot. It's too hot. No, like I said, I really enjoy the Spring Gathering. It's most of the anniversary and I think the 42 second edition tournaments are both sold out now. There's still space in the global tournament, I'm pretty sure, at the Spring Gathering, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to being there. So, all right,
Yeah,
I think that is Are you guys coming? You guys coming to Spring Gathering? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Good.
That's why it's so funny to think of a time. I mean, since the Spring Gathering, I've thought back on many of those games. This one in particular, so many times. I can't believe it was less than a year ago that we'd never been. It's kind of shocking, frankly.
Well, I mean, since then you went to Gen Con, then you came to Battlefront Dayton, so you got a lot more tournament experience under your belt until you got, so going into the Spring Gathering this year, like, and I got to say, like, for those being your first events, like, you made the final at the Spring Gathering, right, in a pretty tough field, right, and then you made the semifinals at the World Championships, like. That's pretty good. Like you beat some really good. You guys beat Eric and Brandon, the 2024 world champions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
and we lost to them quarter or in the semifinals last year too, or the first year.
Yeah. So you played right. Okay. So you played Gen Con 24.
Yeah. So we were 2024. We went just to Gen Con because. Never been to a tournament before. Why not go to the World Championship and see what it's like? And then we got a taste of it, and it's like, yeah, let's just do this now because this is fun.
Yeah, it really is. Once you get into it, it is a pretty good time. So there's so Ned, you've got a question about how it works to play with clocks. Go ahead and fire that question in there. We're going to go to member only here in just a few minutes before we jump into the game. So, but I want to kind of give you guys an opportunity to, if there's folks that want to join, then now's a great time to do that. Happy birthday to Todd Molena, who's apparently in the chat. So, happy birthday. But no. So you played Gen Con 24, and you lost to Eric and Brandon in the middle of their World Championship run in the quarterfinals there, and then you got your sweet revenge. Man, come to think of it, like you guys would have been on. What a coup it would have been in 25 if you'd have beat Eric and Brandon in the quarterfinal, and then beat the two guys that you faced in the final at the Spring Gathering. If you then beat us,
that was the goal.
Man, I'd make a whole movie just about that tournament run. Like
that's right.
That'd be pretty great. Okay, so let me jump over to. Let me bring the keynote in so that you guys can we'll give you a little bit of a sample here before we switch over to the member only, so you get a feel for what the rest of the show is going to look like here. All right, make sure that this please work. Okay, great. All right, so we're up here now, and all right. So from here, what will happen is, if all goes to plan, we'll be able to go to here and talk about the game. And let's make sure, see if my new toy works. So I am a big fan of going after the Pacific Fleet over there. And then, of course, trying to get as much of China as possible. But then sometimes that doesn't work, and you have to really focus on maintaining your home territories. All right.
Digging it.
Right?
Yeah, I like it. It's super helpful. I think you're
Agreed.
just going to be doing that just to like do it.
Hours, days of work to get that to work. Okay, so just and to have it work. You know what I'm going to do? I've never done this before. A round of applause. That worked in the middle of a live stream. I can't believe it. That's fantastic. Okay, cool. Yes, like John Madden. That's exactly what I was after. I've been like, I don't know how many of you have watched the other live streams, but it's always made me crazy because like we'd be talking about something, it'd be on the screen, and I couldn't like, I just have to waggle my mouse over it so that you could see what I was talking about. But I got all kinds of cool toys now, so I think this is going to work. Okay, so all right now, sorry, my own little. You got to celebrate the wins, my friends. Just you take the wins when you can get it. And this is a good one. So I like this one. Over here, there. Okay, we're back over here. All right, we're here. Okay, so next, as a reminder, this game in tournaments we use the 1942 scenario for the anniversary edition. This is the starting IPCs for each of the powers. The Axis are making 78 IPCs at the start of the game. The Allies are making 93. And the Axis start with 8 victory cities, and the Allies start with 10. So this is kind of the classic Axis and Allies formula, right? The Axis start with more stuff on the map, and the Allies start with more money, and usually more cities, right? So they're the status quo, essentially, and the Axis need to use their built-up material to overcome this economic advantage, right? Otherwise, the Allies just continue to lean into that economic advantage and overpower the Axis. Okay, so I think it's useful to start this way. This is kind of our starting mark, right? And I think this is useful. So this game, all tournament games start with an opening bid. That starts with a roll. In this instance, Brian and Adam won the roll, and they decided once they won the roll, they get the option to bid or defer, which would give us the option to bid first. But they chose to bid, and they opened with the Axis +4. Okay, so they said we'll give you the Axis +4, and we can say yes, we'll take it, or we can offer them the Axis +5, or however much more than that we want, but it's got to be a positive number. So, but we said, okay, we'll take the Axis +4, and we turned it into an artillery unit that we opted to then place in Burma. So this unit is the unit that we got in the bid, and we placed it in Burma. And our goal is, of course, to take out this flying tiger, right? So we're after that. That's the key unit. If Japan is unable to take this unit out on their first turn, it's a pain for the rest of the game. So this is where you'll see 98% of the bids that are received by the Axis in this game. This is almost always where they land. So this is pretty traditional stuff. But before we get too far down that, I'm curious, guys, why Axis +4? Like it seemed like that's a bid you give, I think, if you want to play the Allies. Am I reading that right?
You're spot on. We went into the spring gathering very much feeling like the Allies we were stronger allied players, and on top of that, we felt like Axis at 4 was a very slight advantage for the Allies. So we'll give you that to get that advantage for us rather than risk offering you 3, and then you may counter 4, and we're, now the bid's at 4, but if the bid's at 4, we'd rather be the Allies. So we chose to just offer you the bid and get the side that we were hoping to play.
Did you guys get Axis in any of your spring gathering games that year?
Nope.
No, we didn't. We were allies every
Okay.
single game.
See, and that's funny because we were the Axis every game.
Yeah.
We were the Axis.
And we would have taken the Allies. It just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah.
But
But that was just what we got offered every time.
Yeah, we would have taken the Axis at 4. We just would rather have them, rather have the Allies with the Axis at 4. So that was the play we made there.
So Axis plus 4 or Allies with the Axis plus 5?
Oh, if Axis plus 5, I want to be Axis every time. That
Okay.
is, it's
Because
only
that's-
one IPC, but
Yeah, that's what happened in your game with Eric and Brandon in 2024, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
Because you guys
they
took
won the roll and they offered us 5 straight out, and we were like, yeah, we will take that.
Yeah.
right, and you took Calcutta on round 1
Oh, in the first one, yes, we did. In the
in
very
24.
first,
Yeah.
2024. Sorry, I thought you meant 2025. Yeah.
All right, my friends. So at this point, we're going to turn it over to member only, or I'm going to hit the button that I think does that. We've never, like I said, trying lots of new things today. So I'm going to hit the button that I think is going to take us to member only. We've had some great gift memberships in there, and we really appreciate that. But we're going to move it over to member only at this point. We thank you so much, and we will be back next Friday. Again, we'll be editing all this into the proper video that will come out in a couple of weeks. So last chance here, last call. I think in theory this is supposed to start a timer. We're going to find out. So I'm going to hit save. If it doesn't, thank you all. If you'd like to join, now's a great time. Okay. Your member only live stream has been created. Okay, so does that mean that it is can anyone confirm that it is in fact now member only? Okay, yep, I'm looking at it now, and it does say member only. And I got the little pop-up that's like the join video. Okay, so that works. Okay, so cool. But it didn't give a countdown. Yep. Okay, so we got, members are still here. I hope the members are still here. That would be very sad. I wouldn't know what to do. Okay. All right, awesome. So that's great. So, but now it doesn't show me how many people are on. It doesn't now my little counter that shows how many people are on, it's just a 0. But I know there's people in the chat. So guys, you're going to have to keep it coming in the chat. Jamie's here as a moderator. That's good news. So that'll help. So we're going to take questions along the way, but we're going to take them at the end of each round. Okay. So if you've got any questions about the game now's a good time to do that. But once we get moving through this, I kind of want to keep it because, obviously we're going to edit this. So taking questions throughout would be really hard. So once we get to the end of each round, we'll take questions about the different positions and so forth. So I hope that makes sense. All right. Okay, good. Yeah. So this appears to be working. Australia's here. Fantastic. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I will say that it is hard to find these things on the TV. Like the controls on the television thing don't work nearly as well as they do on the phone or on a computer. So that's good. Okay, good. So, all right. Guys, any thoughts, questions, things you want to talk about before we continue into the game here?
I'm ready, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Super fun forever. You said 55 people are on. I would like to know how you know that. Because my little...
But it says in
thing.
YouTube.
Is that what... really? Because it doesn't say that for me.
YouTube tells you how many people are on a live stream.
Okay. Even if it's member only?
I don't know.
Apparently. Okay, well, there it is. Okay, so let's get into this game. So it was the Axis +4. We put the artillery in Burma, and then we fired it into Japan's first turn. We've gone back and forth about Japan's opening a couple of times. Most of what we do here is based on the Japan opening that Eric Meister kind of premiered or that he kind of created, but we made some tweaks to it along the way. One of which is picking up the carrier and 2 transports here and holding the extra 3 IPCs to see what the Allies do and what Japan might need based on the outcome of J1, right? Like if we need
you don't need the extra infantry because you can get them in Okinawa. So to me, you might as well save the 3, and you could get infantry in the future round. You don't need it at the beginning of round 2, or you can use the 3 for something else.
Right. So if like you end up losing a bunch of fighters for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so J1's combat move. We've got the 2 infantry coming in from Manchuria with its fighter, 1 guy coming over from Kiangsu. The other 2 from Kiangsu, plus a fighter that came from Japan, is coming into Hubei. In Fukin, the transport picks up the tank that was here, moves down to Okinawa, picks up the guy, and then moves over into Fukin. He's joined by the... Oh.
Not going that direction.
He's not going that way. I got a little eraser and everything. Look at that. He's not going that way. He is headed that direction. So he's going into Fukin. Yunnan is the one that we're really focused on, though. We're sending all 4 of the land units that can get there. That's the 2 from French Indochina, plus the infantry and the artillery that came up from Burma, plus the fighter from French Indochina and the fighter, I believe this one is actually the fighter from Manchuria that's coming all the way down with 3.
Yeah,
so that is... oh, you're right. So that's, yeah, this fighter here is he came from Formosa.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, cool. So that is the combat in China. In the Indian Ocean here, this is pretty straightforward. This is the fleet from 38 coming into 35 to take out the UK fleet. We did something a little tricky here.
Sorry,
so you'll notice...
Formosa's in 35. The fighter from 38 is in Yunnan. Yeah.
Right. So this...
we made.
Right, so this fighter is actually the one who came from Formosa, right? And then one of the fighters that was here is the one that has 3 moves that's in Yunnan. So it can land in Fukin or it can land in French Indochina. So, yeah. Hey, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you, Rick. Okay, so, and now I'm going to have to not pay attention to that. I love you guys. Thank you very much for that. But now I've got to focus on this thing. Okay, so we're going after the UK fleet in C-Zone 35. And then, of course, we're headed into Pearl Harbor. This is the bomber down from Japan. The cruiser is coming over from 50, the destroyer and the fighter out of 51. And the sub is coming up from the C-Zone around the Solomon Islands. And I believe that is all of our combat. Something to note here, we left the battleship in C-Zone 62 again. I like this, and we talked about this a little bit. We discussed this a little bit earlier, but there's a couple of reasons to leave that there. If this goes horribly wrong and that carrier somehow survives, that means that there's probably going to be a fighter that can get into C-Zone 62, that plus a bomber. And if you've got just your carrier there and the 2 transports, it can get a little scary. And even if you bring up this one, now it's still a shot that's worth taking. But the bigger concern, and this is something that Doug pointed out, is that if you should happen to lose any of these fighters, one of these fighters is planning to go over here, this fighter is planning to come up here. So if either of those fighters don't survive, now they're really ripe targets, because now it's just 2 carriers that may or may not have anything on them. I promise you that if I'm the Americans, I'm going after them. So this is the reason why we leave that battleship in C-Zone 62.
Yeah,
Doug,
I don't
any
think
thoughts?
I mean, you can use it to bombard the guy in Fukin, but I'd rather leave it in 62. I don't think you need the bombard, so I'd rather play it safe in 62. It's my perspective. I mean, what we're taking into 53 is like, I don't remember, it's like a 95, 96% chance, and it's like, I think 94 plus in all those land battles, so you shouldn't be losing the fighters, but I've seen it happen on more than one occasion. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, well, let's see how it goes. In China, we were successful all around. In China, we were successful all around. We managed to take out the guy in Suiyuan. We got the guy in Hubei, and we were very successful in Yunnan. We only lost 1 of our infantry there and got all of the Chinese and the American Flying Tiger that was there. So that was a very, very good outcome for us. Left us with a healthy number of land units in China. I think we only lost one in Hubei. So I think that was our only loss there. We were equally successful in C-Zone 35, where we only took one hit, and we were able to soak that into the battleship. And then last, but certainly not least, Pearl Harbor. C-Zone 53, this did not go well. Speaking of that 94, 95%, whatever it is, this was all bad. Basically what happens in the first round, we Doug rolled, we got one hit there. They took it on the carrier and then rolled back. They got 3 hits. So they got rid of our sub, the destroyer, and the cruiser in the very first round of combat. And we opted at this point to retreat. We decided that this was not going to be any fun for us. So we backed out of this space and decided to try to save our air units. Total losses this time, of course, were substantial. The Axis losing 38, the Allies losing 75. That seems like a lot, and it is a lot, but it's considerably more than the Axis are used to losing here. Typically, you only will lose that sub and maybe the destroyer in C-Zone 53, but losing that cruiser was a big loss. That's a chunk of the Japanese Navy that we're used to having going into the end of this turn and into our non-combat phase. So it's unfortunate that they were so successful in the return fire. Non-combat, this is where we were at the end of combat, so we can look around here. The first thing that has to happen is the fighter that survived in C-Zone 53 gets its one move to find a place to land, and so it jumps over and lands in the Hawaiian Islands. So it does have a safe place to land. Good for him, I guess. That must be nice. And then in China, we moved 2 of the fighters into Kiangsu. And then we also dropped 2 fighters into Fukin. Right, and one of the fighters actually came up from 35. The one that had one move, it used its remaining 3 to get up to Fukin, leaving that carrier with 1 fighter and then the battleship. The bomber came over to C-Zone 51 and landed in the Caroline Islands. As planned, that carrier came north with the fighter that was in 53, and then one of the fighters came out from China and landed in C-Zone 62. This is the thing that you end up counting 72 times just to make sure that you're not missing anything, but we were certain that this transport was not in range of any of the Allied air units, so that guy's safe where he is at the moment. We go to mobilize. We mobilize. That's the carrier and the 2 transports into C-Zone 62, making that a pretty formidable force at this point. It's a battleship, 2 carriers, 2 fighters, and 2 transports. We collect our income. We earned 35 IPCs this time. We had saved 3. That gives us a final total of 38 IPCs at the end of J1. Doug, any thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the battle in C-Zone 53 was pretty tough. You don't want it to go that way. I think they made the right decision in losing the carrier, but if they would have known they were going to hit 3 times, obviously I'm really glad they lost the carrier because it would have been really bad had they not. And then, yeah, in Fukin, I also lost 2 infantry, even though the battles went well elsewhere. That didn't go as good as it usually does. So that, Japan's bread and butter is how many landing units they have in Asia. That's really, really a significant number for Japan in every game. So you hate to lose anything. And I've had plenty of battles where it went worse because the other 3 battles went so well. So yeah, I feel mostly good, but I hate the fact they have that extra fighter. Destroyer may not be as important, but the fighter is really killer for America to have.
Agreed. Adam, what were you thinking at the end of J1?
Yeah, I was very happy with how 53 turned out, though. I agree. I regret, had I had any inkling that we were going to have units survive there, wouldn't have dumped the carrier. The reason for doing that is we're expecting this to be a little bit of a slog, you to grind us down, and you still had that sub. So the destroyer, if you got a sneak attack with the sub, the carrier is just gone. Where the destroyer gets to fire back, they both roll a 2. Figure they're both dead. Let's dump the carrier. But yeah, oh man, big regret there. That carrier would have been very nice. Even without it, though, feeling great about having an extra destroyer and fighter to play with, because generally that's 2 units ahead of where I'm used to starting. That's a good, much better starting point. It's a decent % increase in what the U.S. starts in the Pacific with. You got normally 3 fighting ships, and I got 4. You got a couple fighters, 3 if you bring in one from the East Coast. Now I've got an extra fighter on top of that. So that's a much better starting point.
Yeah, Doug, I'm curious if they'd kept the carrier, do we continue? I think we continue.
Yeah, you might have to.
Because I have to get that carrier.
You got to get that carrier. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if they lost the destroyer, might have had to go another round and risk my bomber and fighter. Which, again, if you're America, that's still even if you only get one of those, you assume you're going to lose the carrier, fighter, and destroyer. So even if you keep the carrier and fighter, I attack hit 2, you retaliate hit 1, you're still in a good spot. Like you don't expect to get the fighter or the bomber.
Right. All right, that takes us over to the Soviets' first turn. I will tell you, I've been waiting for a long time to ask you guys about this Russian opening because it befuddles me. I don't understand it, and I'm looking forward to kind of hearing your explanation as to why this works for you. But we'll get there when we get there. So for your purchase units, you got 24 IPCs to spend. You spend them all on 5 infantry, an artillery, and a tank. For your combat move, it's 3 infantry in from. For your combat move, it's 3 infantry in from Karelia. The tank in from Archangel moves into Moscow and then across into Belarusia. Those are the only units going into Belarusia. Okay. East Ukraine is the 3 infantry from Moscow, the artillery from Moscow, both tanks from Moscow, and the tank from the Caucasus, along with the fighter from Moscow. Okay? So it's basically everything from Moscow is going into East Ukraine, plus the tank in Caucasus. Okay? And now in Ukraine, it looks like 2 infantry, the artillery, and then the bomber going into this mayhem down here. Okay? So this all makes sense to me, almost all. Like if you'd have done this, if you'd have brought these 3 guys in too, I'm with you. I totally get it, right? You're going after it. I love it. But that's not what happened. So let's move it. I don't want to get to the end. Your other combat move is to step forward and take Manchuria with the one of the infantry from Buryatia. So let's see how the rest of your combat went. Of course, you were successful here. You were able to take this with no problem. Again, though, this is not a capture for the Soviets. It's a liberation for the Chinese. So now they'll have 4 territories, so they'll be able to place 2 units on their next turn. So here's what happens. So they came into Belarusia, and they lost 2 guys and then evacuated to Moscow. Okay. They got 1 hit. They lost 2 in return. In East Ukraine, they got 2 hits, lost, looks like 3 infantry in return, and then evacuated everybody to Caucasus. And then in Ukraine, it looks like you lost 2 infantry. The Germans lost 2 infantry, and then you retreated with the artillery and the bomber. So that leaves the Germans in control of the entire front line. Now, here's my question. Oh, wait, I'm going. was this so? So here's my question: was this the result of the rolls, or was this the intentional strategy, Brian?
A little bit of both there. So the intention is to strafe those territories and kill as much as possible while taking as little hits and pulling back. Um, we were hoping for quite a few more hits in East Ukraine, and we were hoping for more of an even trade. The idea is to get as much back to Russia to stand up to any, tank buy push kind of that we'd seen in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, that is. So this is we've found this is a really effective strategy against a Germany that just says I'm throwing everything at Moscow right from the start, because you wear Germany down a little bit, but you're basically not exposing any of your heavy units to risk, so you can really buy heavy infantry and because you have tanks and artillery and your air survive, and those can be the backbone, and the infantry can be the spam. And yeah, Belarusia, there's nothing really juicy there to hit. But the reason you swing the tank through Moscow and hit that is those 3 guys from Karelia can now retreat to Russia instead of being stuck in Archangel, where they're an easy hit for Germany, especially if you're pulling back from the front. So this is just about purely preserving as many good units as you can and taking a swipe while you do it.
Okay. Doug, I'm curious what you think about this.
Well, I didn't remember you guys did this in this game. I do remember you did it at the World Championship, and I remember at first thinking, man, they retreated. Then I was like, oh, okay, got it. They're just trying to strafe a bunch of these territories. I think it's really interesting. I mean, obviously, we usually push and try to capture 2 or 3 of them. I like the idea of our idea of preserving the tanks is not taking them in. Your guys' idea is strafing with them. I kind of like both. I do wonder if you're going to strafe like this. I just wonder if you're preserving this many tanks and this many artillery, would it be better to just buy 8 infantry in round 1? Even though I'm not generally a fan of that purchase. I love your guys' purchase. I think 511 is the right purchase. But if you're going to strafe like this, maybe having the 3 extra infantry would be better. So I don't know. Yeah.
I think it will. And that's, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say one of the reasons we do that purchase actually is for round 2. Germany can stack East Ukraine pretty heavy. And can get some fighters there, and it gets real hard to take. And getting that extra attack power on round 1 makes it that much harder for them to really commit to taking that territory and holding it.
Yeah. I'll also say this is not, strafing is what we did at both and generally what we do with this, but if you ever want to try this opening, we always resolve East Ukraine first. If that goes well, right, we finish that. And then if you're staying finished there, those units are vulnerable, so you stay and you finish the other 2 as well to either draw Germany away from your most vulnerable, or like at least kill as many Germans that are going in there as you possibly can. And when you do stay and you get stuck there, you definitely, you can end up with all your tanks on the front line, and you want a couple more to counter whatever Germany goes in there with. So yeah. Russia's buy is, if there's one buy a game where I could do it at the end of my turn, I would pick Russia's round 1 buy every time. You know what I mean? Knowing how these battles would turn out, it would be so influential in what I decide to buy at the end of the turn.
Sure. Yeah.
And one thing we debated back and forth was committing some more of those Archangel infantry, like you said, Gary. But we found a lot of the times when we committed to 1, 2, 3 more, we were getting stuck there and not actually strafing it, just off getting lucky. And so we got stuck 1 too many times in too many practice games.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to sound like a joke, but I'm not trying to make a joke here. I don't think I would have bought the if this is the opening, I don't think I buy the tank. I think I buy a fighter. And I know like
It
there's
does sound like a joke now.
I know it sounds like a joke, but it's not. And I was thinking about this as I was kind of putting all this together. Like these tanks, they end up being too valuable to risk, right? So like you don't end up pushing into Ukraine with them. You don't end up pushing into East Ukraine with them because now they're at risk, and you end up having to do just a bunch of light trades on the front line. But we'll see this as we go over the game. But think about this strategy. So as we go through this, think about this strategy with instead of the tank with a fighter, right? You'd have to mix up the rest of the units that were bought. I think it's probably 2 infantry, 2 artillery, and 2 fighters, and a fighter rather. So, but think about that as an option for this as we go through the rest of this game.
If I could get 2 infantry, 2 artillery, and 2 fighters with rush on round 1, I'd do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you can do
Allies
that, you
plus
don't
10,
need to worry
please.
about how the battles are going to turn out. I'll just take that by. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Right. All right. So that's how their combat turned out. Losses this time: Axis lost 15, Allies lost 21. Not really what you're hoping for if you're the Allies in this opening. For their non-combat move, so this is where everything was at the end of the retreats. Yeah, after everything retreated, this is what it looked like. So this is now the non-combat move that comes after that. They consolidated in Sherbet, so that's going to put looks like 6 infantry in that spot there, while everything else continued to move west. I'm patting my head and rubbing my stomach. Okay, let me try that again. So the infantry consolidate in Sherbet. Looks like there's going to be six infantry there. The guy in Yakut moves over. Evenki moves over. Urals moves into Moscow, as does Novosibirsk. Novosibirsk also steps into Moscow there. I think what happened there?
This is what it's like, guys.
Right. Yeah. Welcome to the back. Welcome
Finally get
to
to
behind the
see it.
scenes.
We're
That's
behind the
right.
curtain.
Right. Welcome to the behind the scenes. Okay. So the 2 infantry from Novosibirsk also move into Moscow. And the 2 infantry from Kazakh also look like they moved into Moscow.
Yep.
The infantry and the AA gun from Karelia moved into Archangel, and of course the sub jumped out and joined the UK fleet in Sea Zone 2, not pictured here. We mobilized. You've got the 5 infantry, the artillery, and the tank. We're sending 3 infantry and the tank into Caucasus. And the remaining 2 infantry and artillery into Moscow. So that means that you're going to end up with, looks like 10 infantry there, a Neapolitan, as I like to call it, a chip of every color. You get a Neapolitan of infantry in Moscow, along with an artillery, the tank, and the bomber. You've got 4 infantry, 4 tanks, 2 artillery, and the fighter in Caucasus. Both are still very secure, considering that there's so much German firepower on the front line. Both of those victory cities are still really, really secure. So I think this is a strong opening. I'm just leery of where it goes, right? Like, what options do you have? It feels like it's very defensive. That's my only concern about it, is that it's very defensive.
That's fair. It is.
Having brought all the guys back, though, I mean, you do make a good point. Having the extra armor and artillery is nice rather than just 3 more guys. Because I don't know that you need 13 guys in Russia right now, So that makes sense.
So, yeah. And this is why I think about the fighter, right? Because I've got like this giant stack of guys to move them forward, right? A fighter is helpful for those purposes, but that's all right. I drink a lot during the day, so that's how it works sometimes.
Yeah. Well, the goal of this is of that big stack is to chug forward in a steamroller, and instead of trading all 3 territories a turn and trying to squeeze that out. Having one of them where you just make a big pile and it's yours, and you trade the 2 adjacent to it and you go on from there. We'll see if you guys give us an opportunity to pull that one off.
Sure. So you collect 24 IPCs, same as your starting value. You didn't pick up any territories this time, so you are making the same as you did at the start of the game. And that is the end of the Soviets' first turn. That's going to take us over to Germany 1. For the Germans' first turn, we have a number of targets that we are particularly interested in. We're interested in C-Zone 2. Let's see if I can get my... Yep. We're interested in... Are we interested in it? I'm not sure we are. There we are. We're interested in C-Zone 2. We're interested in C-Zone 12. Oh, no. No, we're not. I lied. It's a terrible lie.
We're not in the West Indies.
We're not interested in the West Indies. Okay. So we're interested in C-Zone 2, C-Zones 12, maybe 15. And we're not really sure what to do. We're not accustomed to having this many land units on the Eastern Front. So honestly, we're not 100%. We have to really think about what we want to do with all of these guys that we're not used to having. So let's get into our purchase units phase. We pick up a carrier, a fighter, 3 infantry, and our artillery, spending all 37 IPCs. For our combat, we move into Archangel just with the 2 infantry. We don't want to send a tank because we won't be able to sustain the territory. And we don't want to send a fighter because there's an AA gun there, and that's just kind of how that goes. You send one fighter into something like this, and it almost always invariably gets shot down, so we didn't want to do that. And it wasn't mission critical that we take it, right? So we sent in the 2 infantry thinking, okay, we'll give it a shot. We used the transport in C-Zone 5 to bring up the infantry and the tank from Northwest Europe into Karelia to take the unoccupied Victory City. We did a lot of math and had quite the debate as to whether or not to go at Caucasus or even Moscow. And after that debate subsided, we opted not to do either of those things. And we can see in calculators later, again, calculators are not allowed at the table, but we can do math on our notepads and so forth. And Doug is actually much better at this than I am. But after the fact, we can run the calculators, and we did it today. And to go into Moscow, we had about a 12% chance of victory. And ironically, it was exactly the same going into Caucasus. So 12% odds for basically all the marbles in round 1 is usually not a great strategy.
Gary likes those ideas, though.
I like to consider the options.
Yeah, well, Brian is our representative on that front. I think it's good to have you got to have a conservative player and an aggressive player at the table. It helps.
Yeah,
I agree.
For sure. What's interesting is that Doug and I often will switch roles. Like in that instance, there's times like at the World Championship, I remember there were times where he was like really aggressive. I was like, man, I'm loving this energy, but maybe not. This is not a good play. I sorry, I need to refill my
think
drink.
we see a little of that later on in this match, I think, where Adam and I swap roles a little bit, and he's like, no, we have to take this territory.
Okay. It's very hot in here. All right. So that's our combat. Let's see how it went. Oh, no, there's more to come. So then we went into C-Zone 2. We sent the 2 subs up from the middle of the Atlantic, and then a fighter and a bomber over to try to clear out the multinational fleet here of the Russian sub and the UK fleet. We went down into C-Zone 12 with 2 fighters and the destroyer. And that is all of our combat. We opted to leave C-Zone 15 alone, and we opted not to make any other, as Doug would call them, Gary-style attacks. We didn't do any of that. But on the upside, we were very successful in Archangel. We took the territory, took no losses, so we also take control for We also take control of the AA gun that's there, so that's handy. Next, we went over to C-Zone 2, and we were, again, equally successful. This was pretty much, this is almost always how this goes for us. We seem to have we almost always just lose the 2 subs, and we come out of this with the fighter and the bomber. But this one went well. But then we look at C-Zone 12, and I have to wonder, where did my fighters go? We rolled the destroyer, both fighters, and missed everything, and they fired back and got 2 hits.
I think this is the only time this has happened to us, this outcome.
Yes, we've lost 1 fighter before, but we've never had this happen.
Yeah.
This was the worst.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah, we miss everything. They hit twice. Like, it's all bad. So we're in a bad way, and we've got to make some hard choices here. So basically what we end up doing is retreat. We have to take 2 hits. We could have taken 1 fighter, 1 destroyer, but if we do that, we leave the Italian fleet exposed to all of the UK units. That they can sink that Italian fleet before they ever get a chance to bake a ziti. Like, it's all done for them, so it's not great. So we opted to retreat with the destroyer so that we'd have a blocker in 13. Losses this time: Axis losing 32 IPCs, the Allies losing 44. This again is a lot more than the Axis are accustomed to losing. That's not great. We don't love that. So we try not to do that, but sometimes it happens. So for our non-combat, so the silver lining of losing the 2 fighters is that now we don't have to try to defend Morocco. So that's the trade-off. So now we can move out of Morocco, Algeria. We don't have to try to land anything there to try to defend fighters and so forth. So we are able to get out of that space. But in the north, we land in Norway. We bring in the fighter and the bomber come back from C-Zone 2. We end another fighter over there because there is still a transport and the cruiser over in C-Zone 1 that can make a landing in Norway. We have to make sure that we're protected and prepared for that. We consolidate in Poland and in East Poland. We're basically trying to take control of the center of the map. This is our objective at this point. And then we're getting everybody out of Belarusia, East Ukraine, and Ukraine, other than a couple of light blockers, so that these tanks don't get a chance to blitz through and do anything crazy. Unfortunately, because we just took control of this AA gun, we can't move it. We'd have to control it at the beginning of the turn to be able to move it. So it's going to stay there, and maybe they won't attack us. Give peace a chance. It happens. So. But at any rate, so and we left 1 fighter in C-Zone 5 for the incoming carrier, and it'll be paired with the other fighter that we bought. And I will say that when those 2 fighters in C-Zone 12 got shot down, I remember thinking how grateful I was that we did buy a fighter in our purchase. So we weren't going to be so far behind in the air units. So that was at least some good news. Like I was saying a moment ago, we don't feel the need to defend Morocco, Algeria. So we step out of there with the infantry and the artillery. The transport grabs the infantry and the tank out of France, moves over into 14, and then down into Libya. And that is the end of our non-combat phase. Like I was saying a moment ago, it's a little clearer to see here. Had we not kept this blocker in C-Zone 13, look at everything that can get at the Italian fleet. There's no way they survive. There's no way they survive. So it was. I was glad that we thought of that and kept that destroyer rather than losing those fighters, or rather than losing the destroyer and keeping 1 of the fighters. We go to mobilize our 4 infantry, artillery, the carrier, and the fighter. Of course, the land units are going into Berlin and the carrier into C Zone 5. We are earning 41 IPCs this time. We had saved 0, so we ended the turn with 41 IPCs. And other than the debacle in C Zone 12, I was fairly happy with where we were at this point. I like having a really strong presence in the center of the map, rather the center of the line between the Soviets and the Germans. I like being in control of that space. I think that's really, really useful. And yeah, losing the fighters was bad, but this is a really good spot to be for the Axis in Africa, because they're putting a ton of pressure on Egypt right now. So they're going to have to make some kind of choice, either back away from that or reinforce it or something. They're going to have to do something with it. And we've been able to, I think, at this point at least, successfully defend the Italian fleet from a preemptive UK onslaught. So I'm feeling okay about Germany's first turn, but of course the outcome in C Zone 12 was pretty rough. Brian, what were you thinking?
At this point, I was a little disappointed we didn't get one of those fighters or the bomber up in 2, but that's generally how that goes, so pretty used to it. Very ecstatic to have everything in 12 survive. Don't really usually see that at all.
Never.
Very happy there, but I'm very worried about Libya. That's a pretty large stack right on the doorstep of Egypt, like you said. So a little worried about that.
Yep. All right, that takes us over to the UK's first turn. They start the game with 31 IPCs. That should be 31. Okay. So they start the game with 31 IPCs. They saved 6 because they only... No. That's 25. They did save 6. That's correct. Okay. So they spent 25. Okay. I'm going to go... Hold on. Like I said...
So here's a question for you guys. I'll be honest, with having the extra cruiser and destroyer, I think I would have gone IC and carrier. What made you just didn't want to try to build an Atlantic fleet at this point? Or what's your thought on not doing a carrier with the extra 2 surface ships?
Correct. We generally don't do a fleet in the Atlantic for UK unless we have much more survive. And thinking about it, even if we had put a carrier down here, it would have got a little tight because you guys can hit it with a bomber and potentially, what is it, 1, 2, 3, at least 2 fighters too. And so a little worried about where that might end up with all that we can get out there. So we generally just go a little bit heavier on let's defend UK and get some fighters, because we can use those to hopefully start challenging that fleet.
Yeah, that's the thought whenever there's a German carrier, is that the fighters are going to be the cheapest way to sink it. So, and then whatever fighters survive that, ideally, you have that fight, your fighters survive, and they're the seeds that you start your fleet on once that you're clear of that German fleet. But if that fleet's on the board, then you got to defend the fleet and you got to defend UK. Whereas if you just pile fighters in the UK, there's no fleet to defend. UK's super safe, and you just continually build more threat against that German fleet until hopefully you get that chance to make it gone.
Yeah.
I haven't done all the math on it, but what I'm looking at here is this carrier and transport that's up here. Not a carrier, sorry, the cruiser and the transport that's up here, plus the cruiser and the destroyer that are in 12, right? If those guys come together in 7, right? If they come together here with a carrier, I don't know that I'm going at that as the Germans.
I mean, from there you could hit that with 4 and 7, maybe an 8, but in 7 you could hit that with 4 fighters, a bomber, plus all of your fleet.
Yeah, you have to do 8 because your cruiser, sub, and destroyer can get to 7.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with that.
Unless you move the destroyer up to 6 and put the carrier and the 2 cruisers in 7. That's still, I don't know. I wouldn't be if I were the Allies.
And you could still hit that with 5 or 4 fighters and a bomber.
Right. So maybe you're right, Doug. Maybe the answer. Maybe you're right. Maybe the answer is C-Zone 8, because if you're there with the carrier, both fighters, 2 cruisers, the destroyer. The Americans also come up, right? They come up to 8. They offload their land units and they leave that destroyer there. I promise you, as the Axis, I'm not hitting that, right? Yeah. I can get there with 4 fighters, and the destroyer, I guess, from 13 can get there, right? So
you can't.
That's not going to be enough.
You can't get there with 4 fighters. It's only 2 fighters.
No, in 8, only 2.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and the bomber.
Yeah.
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 So I don't know. I think maybe C-Zone 8 there, because now I don't know. Now I'm the Germans, and I don't know what to do, because I'm going to have this fleet that's now essentially trapped in C-Zone 5. But
I think what you guys did was fine. I was just curious.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Gary's starting to sell me that maybe we should have bought that carrier. But I think also this is, it's a tournament. This is our second day of playing our second 6-hour game in a row. And we might have just been, we have a script to how we respond to the carrier. And unfortunately, we didn't plan a contingency for C-Zone 12 going like that, because it shouldn't, frankly.
Right. Yeah, sure.
That's not something we were like, what if this ever happens? So
sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, not a thing you normally plan for.
Just to be clear, I don't think it's a mistake. I think you can go either way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I might have done carrier complex. Might have been my and then have the Americans come in and land, just so that the Germans can't do anything froggy and try to come into London, right? You'd still have enough defense value. And honestly, I'm not even really sure you need both fighters on the carrier. You might grab one of the American fighters for that
You got an extra fighter. Yeah, I mean, you could send the American fighter and destroyer there because you have an extra American fighter and destroyer. But then it's kind of like you don't have an extra American fighter and destroyer, or at least not in the Pacific. So, it just depends on how you want it to lay out.
So you did buy a complex and you bought a complex and a fighter. You started with 31, you spent 25, you saved 6 IPCs for later days. For your combat move, you sent the bomber over from London to bomb the industrial complex in Karelia. We don't have an AA gun there or any fighters that can jump up as interceptors. You sent 1 infantry out of Calcutta into Burma, which is unoccupied. Those are the only 2 combats this time, and you, of course, were successful in Burma as it was unoccupied. And you rolled a mighty 1 in the assault, the assault on Karelia. So you did 1 point of damage in that. You did 1 point of damage to that complex. For your non-combat move, you opted to take the gifted destroyer and cruiser up to C-Zone 1 and keep the rest of that fleet there. You walked the Western Canadian over to Eastern Canada. That bomber came down and landed in Moscow. The destroyer, that arrow almost could have worked. The destroyer came out at 15 and ended in C-Zone 33. The transport jumped over from 27 into 28. important note here, normally when we see this, these two land units will move forward and up into Rhodesia, but they didn't do that this time. They stayed in the Union of South Africa. The fighter from Australia did come up to Calcutta. And I like this move into, I like this notion of keeping the guys in the Union of South Africa. I think there's some fun things that can be done there. Did that work? Something weird happened on my screen. So I like the idea of keeping these guys in the Union of South Africa. I think they can do some pretty cool things there with that transport that's in 28.
Yeah, I thought Brian was crazy when he first suggested it, and then he was like, "Well, let's play it out." And then I was like, "All right, yep, you did some good things there. Let's keep that move."
Yeah, it's fun. All right, when we go to mobilization, we get that complex, of course, is going into Calcutta, and that extra fighter is coming into London. You collect 33 IPCs this time. You had saved the 6, so you end with 39 big IPCs in the Royal Treasury. Brian, how do you feel like the UK's first turn went?
I felt this is a pretty solid, UK turn, pretty solid UK turn for what we usually do. UK doesn't have a ton that we usually do round 1. So overall, I was very happy with how it turned out. Minus the bomber only getting 1. I was really hoping for 4 there, but
Yes. All right, over to the Italians for their first turn. We've got 10 IPCs to start this one off. We use it to purchase an infantry and a tank. That's 8 IPCs. We're saving the 2 for next time. For our combat move, we're picking up an infantry and an artillery and moving over and trying to use the bombardment ability of the Italian fleet to try to thin down this stack that's in Transjordan. I'm a big proponent of like the strength of the Italians is the navy that they are gifted at the beginning of the game, right? So I want to try to use their offshore bombardment ability as often as possible. So in this instance, we can fire twice because we only have 1 transport. So we move over with the battleship and the cruiser. We still will have 2 2s, a 3, and a 4. We're hoping to take out 2, hopefully maybe 3 infantry there, and that'll make it a lot harder for them to try to push back into Africa. We also stepped over from Tripoli with the 2 guys into Cairo to take that unoccupied space. Of course, we were successful in taking Egypt, but we weren't as fortunate in Transjordan. We only got 1 hit there, and of course they hit back. So the losses this time, Axis -7. The Allies are just down to 3. We got 1 hit there in Transjordan, which was a little bit of an undershot, I think, but it happens. For non-combat, we bring that cruiser over from 14 to rejoin the fleet, and then almost everything else steps into Bulgaria, Romania with the Germans there. We did leave 1 infantry behind in the event that we need to spring over into France. So we wanted to have the ability to punch there. We also brought the fighter into Bulgaria, Romania. A lot of times you'll see this fighter down in Egypt because there's typically a need to fight down here, but they brought everybody out. So we were able to step up there for free, which gave us the ability to keep the fighter in a little bit more accessible position. So that was a bit of a plus for us. We go to mobilize the infantry and the tank. Of course, they're going into Rome. And we collect 12 IPCs plus the 2 we saved. Ends the turn with 14 IPCs. We like the 14 IPCs here because it gives us the option at a carrier if we want it. Or we can pick up a transport, or if we like, it gives us a lot more versatility here. We don't immediately need additional land units on turn 1 because we only got 1 transport to move around. So keeping 2 in the reserve plus the 12 that we're going to pick up after we take Cairo gives us a lot more flexibility on Italy's second turn. Over to the USA for their first turn. They start the game with 38 IPCs. They're going to spend all of it to pick up 2 carriers and a fighter. This is something that we have been seeing a lot of lately, and it's usually a pretty successful strategy, and we'll see how it plays out for them here. For their combat move, pretty light this time. They're just going to try to swing down, and, well, they're not going to try. They are going to send that American bomber down to take out the German transport that is currently undefended.
Unbelievable, guys.
It's pretty rude.
Dirty pool.
It really is.
That's right.
But they were able to sink that transport faster than it took for this graphic to run, so they sank to the bottom of the Mediterranean. It happens. He served his purpose. He got a couple guys into Africa. For their non-combat move, they are going to send those units to the Pacific side of the Panama Canal. They're going to take that transport, that destroyer. They're going to bring the 2 infantry, the tank, and the artillery and land them in Panama. They did leave the destroyer that started in C-Zone 20. They left them there. I am curious, guys, did you do that on purpose or was that an oversight?
I think that was on purpose. This game does run a little into our other game we played against you. Some of the tracks are the same. But I think that was, while we were positioning for Pacific, we were still looking at those extra British units. Do we want to push back Atlantic? We've made the move, so very unlikely, but maybe if one more round in Europe goes a way we're not expecting, we got a little bit more extra fleet, and it will probably be a while, even with that extra starting point in the Pacific of that extra destroyer fighter, that buys us a little leeway to maybe stall one more time, because it's still going to, that destroyer is going to still be in time for whatever big showdown happens between Japan and the U.S. when it's, full fleet fight. So
Yeah.
maybe that was just preserve a little more flexibility was the hope there.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot, actually, because you can bounce out of that to 18 and then be in range of France pretty quickly. Or if you needed to jump down to Africa to get a running, German tank that's just kind of sprinting through there, you could send one of the transports back to clear that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting thought.
And maybe a counter against that. Pull something away from that massive force you stacked up in Libya.
Right. Yeah. All right. And in the Pacific theater, okay. In the Pacific theater, you dropped 2 fighters into C-Zone 56. The rest of the fleet came down to 53. This is the bomber that came from the eastern United States. This is the fighter and the bomber that... No. This fighter came from Hawaii. This bomber came from the western United States, so they landed in Australia. Looks like they're trying to make their way over to Calcutta. This is a pretty popular route for those guys. You brought the sub into C-Zone 53. That takes us over to China. China has control of 4 different territories right now. And so that means they're going to get 2 infantry at the end of their turn. Do they have any combat? I don't think so. Nope, they're going to move right in their non-combat phase. They're going to move just the one guy back from Ningxia. And then mobilize the additional 2 infantry into Qinghai, making a stack of 4 there, leaving the one guy in Xikang. You mobilize the 2 carriers and the fighter off the coast of San Francisco. And so now you've got 2 carriers with 3 fighters in C-Zone 56 as you collect the income of your traditional 38 IPCs and you end the United States' turn. I'm interested that you've got these extra fighters and one of them remains on the island of Hawaii. I wonder why. Why leave the guy on Hawaii instead of
that?
Keeping
I think was just a miss. I think the intention was to move it with the fleet, but again, we're not even used to having a spare fighter. It's a weird thing to say, a spare fighter. That's a precious unit. But so we typically do move one down to Australia. So we're used to having 2 carriers with only 3 fighters on them, and it didn't look weird to me. It didn't stand out, and I just forgot to move that guy. But yeah, he's not doing me any more good in Hawaii. If he were on the carrier, he could reach basically everything that he can reach from Hawaii anyway. And it's a little bit more insulation in case you guys decided to get Gary against that fleet.
That's true. That's true. All right, so that is the end of round 1. This should be, yep, here it is. Our victory city count is the Allies and the Axis are now tied at 9. The Axis are making 86. That's up 8 from their start. The Allies are making 87. That is down 5 from their start. One thing that's important to keep in mind here when we talk about the IPC counts, what's important to know is that they are not always going to be the same, right? So you can see that the Axis are +8 and the Allies are -5. It's not a zero-sum game because of how China works, okay? In China, they do not generate their own IPCs, okay? So if China controls a territory, they use it to generate more infantry. They don't generate IPCs. But when the Axis take control of a Chinese territory, they can generate IPCs from that space and do generate IPCs from that space. So you end up with a, when you're looking at the math of this, they almost never line up. And it looks a little confusing, but that's why. All right, so I think we're in a good position in Africa. I think we're in a reasonable position in Europe. We're down a little bit on the fighter, but man, that UK fleet is a little scary in the North Atlantic there. We're just sure that's going to come down swinging at us at some point. We know that there's a bunch of extra American units in the Pacific theater that are not usually there, so we're going to be paying real close attention to Japan's position. And that is the end of round 1. Before I promised that we would take questions. There we go. Questions here. There you go. There's my lovely bride. Any questions at the end of round 1? She's paying attention. I love it. I love it. All right. So there were a few questions earlier on. Let me see if I can scroll back real quick and see if there's anybody here. Hey, Mr. Coffee. Great to see you. The Chicago chapter has arrived. Great to see you. All right. Yep, the bid was Axis +4. I think we're in pretty good shape here. All right. Oh, General Sam is here from Pewaukee, Wisconsin. Great to see you, brother. All right. So we're moving on to round 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Everybody okay?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Another question. Very balanced first turn. Did either team have doubts on their strategies? At this point, I think it's too early to tell. Like, we had some dice that went our way, some that didn't go our way. They had some good outcomes. We had some bad outcomes. But for the most part, it's still, like you said, it's pretty balanced at this point. So I wasn't feeling nervous about where we were at this point in the game. So anybody else?
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I would say there are parts of the map where I feel great and parts of the map where I don't feel great. But on the whole, I feel, I'm not feeling cocky and I'm not feeling like we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't love my position. Russia being able to sneak down in Manchuria to give China the extra guy and then the extra US pressures. I'm not feeling fantastic about that.
That's what we were hoping for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would have loved to see, I know it was a long shot, but a few more guys dead in, Transjordan also, because that, I think, helps Japan significantly. So just hitting one guy there was not ideal for me.
Would the UK have considered a bomber over a fighter?
My worry with a bomber round one, and this may be mitigated by adding the US up there, like you were talking about before, is just feeling a little bit light on defensive units with Germany being able to hit. Germany can right now hit UK with 4 fighters, a bomber, a tank and infantry, a bombard. So I think a bomber just feels a little light for adding to the defense, which is why we usually go with the fighter there.
Yeah,
Makes
I'll
sense.
also add that when you get to step into Burma, which you usually do, that puts UK in a position for the round 2 buy to fill that India complex and get 3 more fighters. If you buy the bomber round 1, you get 2 more fighters and 8 extra points. So while it would be really nice to have 2 bombers in round 2, that extra piece in round 3 adds a lot of threat to that German fleet.
Yeah, why take an infantry and a tank to Karelia when the tank can walk and you can do 2 infantry instead? So this is a question about Germany's first turn. I used the transport to bring the infantry and the tank from northwestern Europe to Karelia. It gets a tank. Yeah, I mean, 2 infantry could have worked here for sure, but I like getting the tank further forward. The infantry can walk, or they can take the obviously the tank can move up there faster, but getting a tank here getting a tank into Karelia, as well as when paired with the tanks that are also in East Poland, like it almost forces them to retake Belarusia and East Ukraine, because if they don't, now there's a bunch of tanks that can stream into that gap pretty quickly. So this is one of the reasons why I like to do that. It keeps the Russians on a little bit more of a defensive footing. And part of it's also reflex, right? I'm not accustomed to having Archangel. So usually if I only have 2 infantry there, they'll send an infantry and a tank, or an infantry and a fighter or bomber or whatever to try to take Karelia back. So this is one of the reasons why I like the tank there. Plus, it's a little bit of a feint for the UK. If I'm shuttling, powerful units to the east, it looks like I'm less interested in the UK than I really am. Even though they're clearly still within reach, right? They could still be moved. They can still be grabbed by the transport and moved back. It, I don't know. It creates a little bit of a feint. So, hey Charlie, good to see you, man. All right, moving on. Round 2. Here we go. We're into Japan's second turn. Doug, what are your objectives for J2?
Yeah, I need to really watch it because I need to keep pressing into Asia. I need to keep Japan, China from producing too much. They already have 5 units on the board. I need to get the 3 IPCs from Manchuria back. But I also got to watch my fleet, because America is going to come in and they're coming stronger than normal with the extra destroyer and fighter. So those are really my main objectives. Try to ultimately consolidate my fleet. I don't know that I'm going to have a lot of chances at victory cities, given how C-Zone 53 went already in my mind in this game. I'll still take a look at what I can, but overall I'm thinking keep China from growing and protect my fleet.
Makes sense. So you've got 38 IPCs to spend. You spend it all on 2 destroyers, a carrier, a tank, and an infantry. For your combat move, you are moving into Ningxia with the 3 infantry, and then you're also taking the guy from Hupei and the artillery that came with the bid, plus 1 fighter, into Xikang. You're also down into Burma with 2 infantry and a tank, along with a couple of fighters. And you are successful all around. You got something?
Yeah, I actually think when I was looking at the pictures of this, I think the press into Burma was a mistake.
Yeah, hold on, let me back up. I missed I missed a whole thing. Give me just 1 second. Okay.
Yeah.
So You are also trying to clear the path in Manchuria. You take the transport back from 61, you grab an infantry and an artillery and land into Manchuria, and you're bringing essentially all of the air power to make sure that this guy has an absolutely terrible day and that he regrets the day that he stepped into Manchuria to become a candidate in that space.
That's right.
You were saying?
Yeah, I think I pressed into Burma too strong. I think maybe take a guy and a fighter there to get rid of the infantry. But even if I would have won and had 2 guys in the tank left there, I think I'm vulnerable to counterattack because there's no follow-up pressure on India. And I would have been better sending more north after China to really try to get rid of them. And that's not just hindsight. Like, I think even at this point in the game, again, what is the guy in the tank in Burma really accomplishing for me? I guess it's preventing India from breaking out, but they don't really have any armor yet to blitz. So I think I went a little too strong into Burma.
Yeah, it might have been more useful for that tank to come from Fukin into Sikang.
Yeah.
Because now all you've got left in this space is the artillery, right? And there's still 4 infantry here that if they decide to get froggy can come out after that piece.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
combat
think
losses.
send an extra infantry and tank in there. So it had 2 infantry and artillery and a tank going that direction.
Yeah. I think I would have sent the infantry from Yunnan and maybe both infantry from Yunnan into Burma with the fighter to try to pick off the guy. But I think you're right. I don't think I would have sent the tank. Losses this time, the Axis are down 9 IPCs. The Allies are down 8. I count the Chinese infantry as 2. It takes control of 2 territories to make them, and they can't leave their territories. So their value to me is 2. So for our crazy math here, this is completely made up by me, just so you know. It's completely my thing. But I count them as 2 IPCs. So Allies lost 8 this time. For non-combat, the fleet from 35 comes around to 36, and they are joined by the 2 transports that come down, and they drop off, looks like 3 infantry. You end with 4 fighters on the 2 carriers in C-Zone 62. The bomber lands in Fukin. One of the fighters also lands in French Indochina, Thailand. And I think that's it.
Yep.
We mobilize the 2 destroyers, the carrier, the infantry, and the tank. Of course, the sea units into 62 and the land units on the mainland Japan. Collected 37 IPCs this time, saved 0, ending the turn with 37 big IPCs. All right. Moving on to the Soviets for their second turn. We've got 24 IPCs to spend. It is now time for 8 guys, apparently, in the Soviet Union. They need some more infantry. For their combat move, it looks like they are making light pushes across their entire front. So they are headed into Ukraine. They're headed into East Ukraine, Belarusia, and Archangel. They want all of it. So it's 2 infantry and the artillery into Archangel. That is the one that seems a little light to me. That's you've got 2 infantry and artillery against 2 infantry. That one seems a little light. Belarusia is 2 infantry versus 1 infantry. Your favorite here, but it's not a big one. In East Ukraine, it's 2 infantry and the bomber against 1 guy. That one makes perfect sense to me. And then in Ukraine, it's 2 infantry and the fighter here. Once again, I'd just like to note that all of the tanks are just sitting in Caucasus and Moscow leaking oil. I'd just like point that out. A fighter here would have been able to ensure Belarusia or allow another infantry to go into Archangel. So,
or get shot down in Archangel. I mean,
right? I wouldn't send him to Archangel. I'd send him to Belarusia, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't send him to Archangel, but I would like to have him in Belarusia. I know that the 2 versus 1 infantry attack is your favorite in it, but I hate doing it.
Yeah, for sure. So how did it go for you? You were successful in Archangel. You were successful in East Ukraine and in Ukraine. Those all went very well. But it did not go so well in Belarus. You lost a guy and then opted to retreat back to Moscow.
Yeah,
Would've hit him with that
1v1
fire.
there.
Yeah. Axis lost 12 IPCs that time. The Allies only lost 3. For your non-combat move, looks like the bomber headed back to Moscow. And that might be your only non-combat. Oh, looks like the guy moved over from Ivanki into Urals. You're mobilizing the 8 infantry. That's going to be 4 infantry into Caucasus. And 4, of course, into Moscow. You collected 25 IPCs this time. You had saved none, so you end the turn with 25 IPCs. Doug, I'm going to get you out of the way here for just a second. These 6 infantry, did you intend to move them to Buryatia, or did you intend to leave them in Shurabet?
I think the intention was to hold there for one more round.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay. All right. And that is the end of the Soviets' turn. I like the light push into the line. I'm happy that we were able to hold Belarus, but they now, it looks like they've got 12 infantry there in Moscow with the artillery, the tank, and 2 bombers. We can get there with quite a bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough to break the line. We got 7 tanks that can get there. We can get there with 2 fighters and the bomber. That's not going to be nearly enough to get into Moscow, but
see, this is the difference between Gary and I. He says we can get there with quite a bit, and I'm sitting there thinking, no, we can't.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, let's see how far off I really am. So we can get there with 7 tanks. That's 21. We can get there with 2 more fighters. That's 27. We get there with a bomber. That's 31. Their defense value is 26, 29, 32.
And technically, you could get an infantry in there too, so you'd be at 32 as well.
Right. Plus and then you've got an AA shot. But we're attacking. All of our attacks are at a 3. Plus, and well, we got a 1, 8 threes, 11, 9 threes, and a 4. It's the ball game if we miss, but it's also the ball game if we win. Somebody in the chat.
I don't agree with that. I don't think it's the ball game if you win that. Because your follow-up is 6 guys. Like, they're going to go in there with 4, 5, 6, 7,
I'm not saying
8.
you can hold it.
Well,
I'm saying that Germany now has 25 more IPCs. The Russians don't have a bomber. The Russians don't have a stack of infantry, right? Like, they're not getting to Karelia. They can't help They can't help Calcutta. Like, yeah. I mean, if I lose Moscow on G2, I might resign. Against quality players, I might resign.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying I don't know that I would say we can get a ton of stuff there or whatever it was you said.
Okay, somebody in the chat, please run the math on this. We're going to keep moving. I need to know what the odds are of Germany going into Moscow.
I got it.
Okay, somebody run this. I would wager that it is over 35%. I'm guessing that it is close to 40% for the Germans to get into Moscow on this turn.
So my only question is, do you go at 40%?
I certainly think about it. And I don't think I'm a crazy person for thinking about it.
You got 2 fighters or 4? 2?
I got 2 fighters. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I got 2 fighters and the bomber and 7 tanks and an infantry.
I got 17%.
Well, you got to remember, like, Brian's rolling, so I get a couple of extra.
You get a few
Just
extra
go ahead
percent.
and double that.
I get a couple extra points, don't I?
We got 12 infantry, an artillery, a tank, a bomber, and an AA gun. Yeah,
2 bombers.
Yeah.
How does it change if you take that AA out of it?
that'll be interesting. I bet it'll change, but not as 24%. I was gonna say not as much as we might think.
1 in
I'm
4.
I'm pretty good shooting planes down.
I
Yeah,
remember
the rest of the rolls.
So we're not going into Moscow. So what we decided to purchase we're moving on here. We got a whole show to get through.
Yeah.
We may end up doing 3 episodes, just for the record. We're going to put that out there now because we're already getting close to the time that I said we were going to be done, and we are just getting into round 2. So we're going to try to move along here. Okay. Here's phrase after here's the odds. Never tell me the odds. Okay. So why did we buy another carrier? I don't know. Why did we buy another carrier? It's a good question. I know why we bought another carrier. Because the UK's got this big fleet out here, plus they bought the 3 fighters. They bought another fighter. So they got 3 fighters now, plus the bomber that's currently in Moscow. They can all reach Zone 5. And so we're starting to get a little bit nervous about that. And we want to continue to add pressure to London. This keeps them, it makes it harder for them to build in Calcutta. It makes it harder for them to start dropping 3 tanks around in Calcutta. So we want to try to keep the pressure on London.
The reason we bought another carrier is because Gary's running Germany.
That's probably true.
No, but yeah, I'm definitely like, okay, Gary, you need to get some pressure cranked up here on the UK because I might be in trouble if they start running tanks out of India at me with America coming with this extra. I mean, just that fighter and destroyer are terrifying. So yeah, you gotta crank up that pressure, like you said.
Right.
Yeah. For as many units as sometimes end up confronting each other in the Pacific, it's crazy how much one extra fighter, one extra destroyer can tip the odds on a big battle. It doesn't take much to just a couple extra hits in those first rolls can turn the battle around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can go 70% to one team to 70% to the other with just 2 or 3 units. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. All right. So we purchased an infantry, a carrier, another fighter, and 2 transports. For our combat, we send one of our tanks out of Libya, past Egypt, and into Anglo-Egypt, Sudan. This does a couple of things for us. Of course, it'll give us control of the territory, but it also takes away a landing zone if they want to send this fighter over. They want to send this fighter over to help retake Egypt. The only place that it will be able to land is in Transjordan. And when that happens, it'll probably be the only thing there. The Italians then can come in and try to take out anything that's sitting there. So I really like taking Anglo-Egypt, Sudan here because it makes it harder for the UK to move into the space. We decide to return the favor on the Eastern Front. We send in 2 infantry and artillery and a fighter into East Ukraine. We send 2 infantry and an artillery and the bomber into Ukraine. We decided to leave Archangel alone because we didn't have enough land units up front. You know what might have helped there? If we had 2 infantry instead of the tank, we might have been able to go at that. I'm just kidding. We still wouldn't have done it. And of course, we are successful in Anglo-Egypt, Sudan. And we are successful in East Ukraine and in Ukraine, very successful. In fact, it looks like we only lost 1 infantry there in East Ukraine and swept the rest of the zones. So that's 3 down for the Axis and 12 down for the Allies. I like this because it's exactly the opposite of what happened last time.
Yeah.
You guys took out 12 of ours and lost 3. So I like that we're maintaining the balance here. Non-combat. We move the rest of the guys out of Libya and into Egypt, making that quite a bit harder for the UK to try to go at. We bring the tank up from Bulgaria, Romania into East Poland. The fighter comes back. We move some guys into Poland. But it looks like the big party now is going to be in the Baltic states. And sure enough, it is. We've got 3 infantry now in Karelia, 3 in Finland. But it looks like 5 infantry, 7 tanks, and the AA gun and the bomber in the Baltic states. The destroyer that was in C-Zone 13 also came around through Gibraltar and into C-Zone 7. We mobilized the infantry, the carrier, the fighter, and the 2 transports. The infantry goes into Leningrad because there's only 1 point of damage to that complex, so there's space to build 1 guy without having to spend any money to repair the damage. And of course, the rest of it is going into C-Zone 5. This destroyer in C-Zone 7 is going to be subject to, get out of my way. This destroyer in C-Zone 7 is going to be subject to whatever the UK decides that they want to throw at it. But I like creating the opportunity for people to go after the wayward destroyer because invariably the solo destroyer almost always hits. So I like the opportunity to do that. And if they don't take a swing at it, then we can just consolidate it with the rest of the German fleet.
Solo destroyers hit at like 80% or something like that.
I think you might be right. It does happen quite a bit more than one would think.
Especially when they're shooting at bombers.
Exactly.
Especially when they're shooting at bombers. No doubt about that. Oh, a little bit of a correction here. The Germans did have one other non-combat move. We moved that sub out of C-Zone 5. We dropped it in C-Zone 6. That normally I wouldn't point it out, but it's going to matter when we get a little further down the road here. So that sub is in C-Zone 6. We collect 40 IPCs this time. We are plus Karelia and Anglo-Egypt, Sudan. So we're plus 3 from our start of 37. We had saved 0, so we're ending the turn with 40 IPCs. I felt pretty good about that turn. All in all, we're, I think, in pretty good shape. So we'll turn it over to the UK for their second turn. They've got 39 IPCs to spend. They spend it all on 8 infantry, a tank, and a fighter.
The carrier and transports did their job.
Yes, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They put enough pressure on London so that you couldn't buy you couldn't buy 3 tanks for Calcutta, or you couldn't put a bunch of fighters in Calcutta. So this did exactly what we were hoping it would do.
Yeah, as I said earlier, we had the perfect amount of money to fill that complex and buy 3 fighters, which would be great. But when you're facing 3 German transports and they're all positioned to hit London, yeah, too risky.
Right. So at this point, just for reference, at this point, the Germans can get to London with 3 tanks, 3 infantry, 4 fighters, and a bomber, plus an offshore shot from a cruiser. So they can bring quite a bit of pain to the British capital. So this is the purchase that we were hoping they would make. Right. So the point of all of this buildup for the Germans isn't necessarily to take London, right? It's to force the UK to leave Japan alone, right? So that they can continue to try to wrestle with the Americans, and they can hopefully, mow down the rest of the Chinese infantry that are out there and keep control of that space. So this is really about this purchase for the Germans, and this strategy has less to do with taking London and more to do with what's going on in the Pacific and the subcontinent. So
Exactly.
all right, where are we? UK 2. All right, so for the UK's combat move, they do take the bait and they head out to C-Zone 7 with the destroyer from C-Zone 1 and all 3 fighters. I don't like our destroyer's chance of surviving, but we'll see if he's able to take anybody with him. You decide to head over to Burma. You're headed there with 2 infantry, 2 fighters, and the bomber coming all the way down from Moscow, taking the long flight over. This is also the fighter from Transjordan, and then a fighter that was previously stationed in Calcutta. Interestingly, opting not to attack Egypt. And again, this transport and infantry and artillery could have been part of that attack, but again, opted not to move in that direction. So we'll see what those guys decide to do down the road. You were successful in C-Zone 7. You were successful in C-Zone 7, but that destroyer did hit and took out the British destroyer at the same time. So that 1 in 3 is a lie, right? It's a lie.
Lone destroyers.
There's no way. Lone destroyers seem to never miss. You were also
packs with dice. I don't know how they did it, but
right. You were also successful in Burma. You took out the infantry and the tank that were there. Looks like you lost 1 infantry there, I think. That is correct. Losses this time, Axis losing 16 IPCs. The Allies only losing 11. That's the destroyer that they lost in 7, and then the infantry that went into Burma. Non-combat, this is where the sneakiness comes in. And I like this move a lot. So the transport that was in 28, oh, wrong color. The transport that was in 28 picks up the infantry. The artillery moves down to C-Zone 30. What are you doing down there? This is not a move that I had really considered before, but I like it quite a bit because of everything that it can get to and so few things that can get to it, right? Yep. So this is currently out of range of all of the Japanese air units. None of them can get there. So he's fine where he is, right?
And even if the bomber's in French Indo, it's still out of range.
Right, right. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's nowhere for him to go. So yeah, so I like this move a lot. And it immediately threatens East Indies. That can also be helped by the bomber that's up there. So I really like that. It could also make its way over to Australia if it wanted to. And if they decide to double back, they can come back to Transjordan or Egypt. So I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they can come up to reinforce India or to retake India if it's fallen. I like this move a lot. I think that's pretty clever.
I love it.
I like that.
That's why that is one of my favorite C zones. It just feels like it gives you access to so much.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it really is. Like, there's a couple of those on the map. Like, they're like sneaky in that they do unexpected things, and this is absolutely one of those. All right, non-combat move. You use the transport to pick up the guy in the tank and move into C-Zone 8 and drop off those 2 land units in London. Obviously, that's going to put it in range of that sub, so you're choosing to sacrifice that transport. But you're sending the 2 cruisers down to C-Zone 10, presumably to maybe edge of the Pacific Theater or to get ready for some kind of counter-assault. I'm not 100% sure, but you've got them off the coast of D.C. We mobilized the 6 infantry. We mobilized 6 of the 8 infantry into the United Kingdom along with the other fighter. And 2 infantry and the tank are going into Calcutta. You collect 30 IPCs this time. You'd saved 0, so you end the turn with 30 IPCs. Brian, what were you thinking about the UK's turn here?
Wasn't super happy with the buy. I did not have a contingency plan for that 2nd and 3rd transport from Germany, and so we were probably being a little overcautious with how much we put there. I'm feeling great about where India is, trading all the units down in Burma. Burma's feeling like I would like it to be a little bloody for Japan, but I'm not feeling great about my odds against your fleet over there in C-Zone 5. I'm also thinking that we may have been able to take that transport to the Pacific. That's something we like to do a lot of times if we have a little less units, and we didn't really, we felt like we had to have it in the UK this time.
Right. So you felt like you needed the land units to defend the capital.
Yep.
Again, this is this German fleet serving its purpose, right? So I like it. I like it a lot. Over to the Italians for their second turn. We've got 14 IPCs to spend, and we use it to buy a transport, an infantry, and an artillery, spending all 14, saving 0 this time. For our combat move, pretty simple. We're just sending the infantry over into Transjordan to take that unoccupied territory. That is our only combat this time. We, of course, are successful in taking it with no problem. For our non-combat, we need to get back over to C-Zone 14 to provide cover for the incoming transport. I think we've lost Adam. Hopefully he'll come back on here shortly. Okay. We did talk about whether or not to bring these two guys down to Libya. Ultimately, we decided that we didn't need to bring more land units down there, so we decided to keep that as an option for later. We mobilized the transport, the infantry, and the tank into Rome and into C-Zone 14, of course. We collect 13 IPCs this time. Having saved 0, we end the turn with 13 IPCs. Welcome back.
There you are.
Sorry, I get the technology Razzie for tonight. My apologies.
Oh, you're doing fine. And you're just in time. We're back to the Americans. For their second turn, they've got 38 IPCs to spend. They spend 34 of it this time with a carrier and 2 more fighters, saving 4 IPCs. Their combat move, they want to use this bomber. They're trying to give something for this bomber to do. And we still haven't managed to defend the complex in Karelia with an AA gun or with a fighter. So they send the Americans up there to do an industrial complex, an industrial raid on the complex in Karelia. And they roll a 1. I love it.
Progress is progress.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, so this is 2 1s in a row that they've gone into that fight. So that's working well for us. You guys should keep using your bombers in this way. So for their non-combat though, that bomber makes its way back over to Evenki and its turn there. The air units that were in Australia make it over to Calcutta, and the bomber that was in Hawaii joins them. So you've got 2 bombers and a fighter now belonging to the Americans in Calcutta. The rest of that fleet moved out of 53 and back up into 56, where it was joined by the 2 destroyers and the transports that came up from the Panama Canal. So now you've got 3 transports there with enough guys to fill them. You've got 4 infantry, an artillery, and a tank. So you've got 6 units for 3 transports. I do appreciate the efficiency of that. And if you need a refill, there's still 4 infantry sitting in Hawaii. So that's nice. You mobilize the new carrier and 2 fighters into C-Zone 56, giving you 3 carriers there, along with 6 fighters. Over to China, they've got these 4 infantry, but that's the only territory that they control is Qinghai, so they're not going to be able to mobilize any new units this turn, but they are not afraid. They are headed into Xikang to try to go after that artillery that we got in the bid, and they're favored pretty heavily in that particular fight. And they, of course, are successful, and we do not get a hit back, so they end up taking out the artillery unit that was there by itself. And now they control 2 units, 2 territories. So if they continue to do that, they'll be able to place 1 unit next turn. Back to the U.S., that is the end of their turn and the end of the round. Brian, any thoughts about where you are in the Pacific? Excuse me, Adam, any thoughts about where you are in the Pacific Theater?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good at this point. I would have liked to have had that fleet in Hawaii go forward somewhere, but Doug has positioned his two fleets in a way that wherever I go, he can hit me with enough plus all his air, and there's not much productive I can do unless I want to shed destroyers as blockers, and I'm not willing to do that at this point in the game. So, but I am feeling good that I have a big fat fleet on the West Coast, and it's big and fat enough now that I can come forward, and it's going to force Doug to basically unify his fleet again. He can't just stay split as easily without facing threats from me, and if he does, I can probably charge forward somewhere. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. And I am feeling pretty good about that artillery not hitting too, because China's down to 4 guys, so every extra guy that survives makes a difference there.
Yep. Absolutely. Doug, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not feeling great about Japan's situation. I don't have enough land units in Asia, and the pressure is mounting with the 3 U.S. bombers starting to get where they can hit different places in the Pacific, and 7 fighters, which is a lot of fighters. So, yeah,
Yes.
I love it.
It does feel like the green air units are starting to close in on the Japanese territory.
India's too strong also.
Yep. At the end of round 2, our victory shade count is still tied. Axis 9, Allies 9. The Axis are making 9 more IPCs than they started with, so they're making 87. And the Allies are down 4 from their start of 93, making 89 IPCs at the end of round 2. Yes, there are a lot of units that are getting closer and closer to Japan. I was curious if there was a way for that fleet that was in 53 to snake its way down here at all. Maybe they come to 47. I also was thinking about whether or not that bomber could have cleared this land unit so that the UK could have landed for free. I thought that might have been an interesting idea. There was no math that makes this make any sense, trying to go into that Japanese fleet. So, yeah, I just it's a tricky spot for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We looked at that fleet too. I would have loved it if there was a shot at that. It would have been great. And yeah, you're probably right. Could have snuck down to Australia, but Doug does have a strong fleet, and my preference is to build a juggernaut to push back against him. If Brian weren't so strong in India, I would probably be looking at Australia as a way to, like, instead of coming straight at Doug, kind of fight around the periphery and look for an opening somewhere where I could grab one. But with Brian being strong in India, now Doug kind of needs to be up north to worry about me, but also down south to try and check Brian. So I like having a bit of a, creating that dilemma there, and I think the big fleet is important for that.
Agreed. But I do like where we are in Africa. It does look like the Axis are going to be able to start moving these tanks down and making some additional money. I mean, sure, the UK can push back here, but there's not really a good way for them to get at these tanks, and they're going to start making a mess. Oh, we lost Brian that time. There we go. Welcome back. So yeah, so I like where we are in Africa, and with this addition of this transport, the second transport for the Italians, I think we're going to be able to continue to make a lot more noise with them, especially now that we can use all 3 of our offshore bombardment abilities with the addition of the second transport. So I like that.
Yeah, not happy about Africa at all.
Yeah.
Definitely not happy with where Africa's at.
Yeah, but I don't know what we could have done differently to stem that tide without, like, just, we could have made that hit in Egypt, but that
odds were not in our favor there. It would have stemmed some of the flow and maybe slowed you down a little bit, but I think ultimately you would have won that fight and you could have re-unloaded.
And and that's the toughest part is our only new units there are coming from India, and we want those to hassle Japan. We don't want those needing those to stop Italians if we both go down to no units in Africa.
Yeah.
I think what might have been an interesting play would have been to take this sneaky transport down here and come and hit Anglo-Egypt Sudan with the bomber.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you kill this tank and land a land unit there, it's going to make it a lot harder for the Germans to start to head that way. And it might save you some IP. It might save the UK a lot of IPCs over the course of the game. So I don't know that it would have saved Africa overall, but it certainly would have made it harder for the Germans to get down there. But
yeah,
again,
yeah, it is
love
an effective stall for.
Right. It would have given you a couple extra rounds, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't have won Africa, but it would have won a lot of money.
Maybe, yeah.
A couple extra rounds of money.
Yeah, it looks like this transport is not long for this world, but it does look like London is fairly secure at this point.
Yeah, and to Brian's right, I think we probably did overdo it in this game, but a paper calc versus a real calculator tend to play it safe, and this is a scenario we never put in any kind of real calculator. So, and it's also the idea is we'd rather overdo it because we still, our goal in our thinking is we're going to buy a bunch of air and eventually those land units are going to see some use. That's our plan at this point. So it's not the units we want to be buying in this round, but we are hoping to get use out of them. Burning the transport to make it happen is not something either of us wanted to do, but we felt like we couldn't take the risk of losing London, because that you lose London when the U.S. is in the Pacific, that is game. It's over.
Yeah.
There's no way you're getting that back.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to recover from.
Yeah.
All right. So questions from the peanut gallery out here. What are you guys thinking about this game so far? Dave Whitfield. This game feels a lot more cautious with each team feeling out the other more tentatively. Japan feels to be in a lot more trouble than I've seen from the Doug Shogunate before. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that Japan isn't as happy as it would like to be at the end of the second turn, but there's a lot of game to play, and it depends on what the U.S. decides to do with this shiny fleet that they've got up here, right? So if they decide to try to head south, if they try to head right into the teeth of it, right? Like what happens? There's also a line that says that they can go north and start trying to land in Buryatia, right? Have the Soviets come forward, start landing fighters there. This gets a lot harder for the Japanese to try to maintain their dominance there. But the other line is to head south and try to go after Money Island. So there's a lot of ways to go forward here. That's a good question. Jon Bosch is here. How are you, my friend?
What's up, John?
Trusted moderators. All right. I think that is the end of round 2. I feel pretty good about where we are right now. So now it is a little after 9, and I think, as I tried to say, I said we try to keep this to 2 hours, and I'm a man of my word. So we will. I think we will pick up round 3 next time. I think perhaps next time we'll be able to. Because first off, let me say that the first 20 minutes or so of this was just kind of preamble, right? So maybe we can get that down to 10 minutes, and we can, like I said at the beginning, this was all an experiment. This is all a test. And one of the things that we've learned is this does go a little slower than we had thought. But like I said, we had some preamble at the beginning. But I will say, all in all, I'm pretty happy with the tech. I think that has been working pretty well. I'd be curious if there is any feedback from the folks still watching us and hanging out with us. How many people have we got still on here? Looks like we got a fair number of folks. Analytics. Still got 28 folks here. We appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, Paul, that's a good point. It's like playing in a regular tournament game. It's an hour a round. The objective of our play-by-plays is not to be real time.
Yeah.
But I think this was good. I think Brian and Adam, I think you guys have been great guests. Doug, of course, always a consummate professional. And from round 3 on, this game goes bonkers. Like crazy things happen that I had never seen before in a game. And I'm excited to share with everybody. So, but I don't want to keep everybody up past our bedtime. So, but no, I think this was great. Awesome. So always, I like the live approach. Would be curious, like, I don't know, like, if we can smooth this out a little bit, is this better than the edited play-by-plays or not? Like, is this a format that you prefer over the regular play-by-plays? If we went to this as like the primary format, it couldn't always be member only, of course, right? Like, you know, it wouldn't be. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, if I'm having a blast, but I've only ever participated. So, or I mean, this is the only time I've got to participate. So I have a pretty strong bias here. I wouldn't use me as a judge here. This was the most fun I've had since probably I played at a tournament. So.
Since Battlefront
I can agree.
Yeah.
I can agree with that statement there. As a participant here, I'm enjoying it a lot, but I also think I enjoy the visualization with you pointing, with you clicking, with you moving stuff around. It makes it feel a little bit more interactive too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big improvement.
Yeah.
What? I don't know what that means. Pair character doing a it's a it's explaining the emoji. Sorry. This pair character doing a shake a sign with his hand saying cool. That must be an emoji or a sticker. It just didn't show me the whole thing. That's funny. That's right. Thank you, John.
So having done both, I think that I'm trying to I find myself trying to keep my comments to a minimum, which may or may not seem like the truth, but it is, because I feel like when we're just recording and I know there's not 30, 50 people watching us, you're going to take what it is and pare it down. And so I'm trying to be a lot more conscious about the things that I'm saying and not using a lot of time. So I think for that reason, I actually feel a lot more restricted in this format than when we're just recording and then we do a live stream commenting on the things that we record. Because I feel so anyway, that's kind of my thought. As a person who's done kind of both sides of it, I actually might prefer the other format a little bit better.
Right. So the way that this would normally go is Doug and I would just kind of run off at the mouth for however long, which is probably why it takes 4 hours. And with fewer people, it takes less time, right? Because more people are sharing more opinions, and that's fine. That's what we wanted in this particular format. We wanted more people. But like Doug said, we'd run off at the mouth and then edit it down to a third of what we said, and then we would basically save all of, as I'm editing, I would pull all of that out, and that would be our notes for the live stream on Friday night.
Here's 4 things we want to talk about, because we talked about it a lot, but we meandered, and let's get to the point more quickly or something. Yeah. Right.
So I think so you're right. So the live format does cause us to be a bit more trying to sound like we sound in the video. At least you're right. I'm trying to do the thing. Right. So this is the plan, Bryce, he says, I like the edited. Maybe you do both, stream the live play-by-play, edit that, and then release the video. I like the rewatchability of the edited ones. Right. So that is the plan, is to turn this into, which is why you heard me kind of double back a couple of times to re-say a thing, because I need to make sure that I'm recording that audio correctly. So that is the objective, is to take this and edit it into that final version, right? That then everyone can watch. Like, this is members only. So like, but we want to make sure, like, members only stuff is supposed to be extra, right? You don't want to have like your core content. And of course our play-by-plays is our core content. You don't want your core content to be member only, right? Like, you want, this is an extra above and beyond what everyone should be expecting when they come and subscribe to the channel, not just, you know, pay to become a member. So yeah, so that's the plan for this. But you're right, Mr. Coffee, it does allow for deeper conversation, but it also then takes us longer, right? So now if we maintain this pace, we're looking at 6 hours to record the content for a single game versus 4 hours when it's just me and Doug. So, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's creating all this other content and all this other kind of cool stuff for the members to be able to do or to enjoy. And that's fun. So I don't know, it's a little bit of a trade-off. I'm glad that we did it, and we'll of course continue and finish out this game, and we'll have, I think we can probably get through the rest of it in one more session, right? Because we've kind of worked out all the details, and I think we're probably going to be in pretty good shape to get this all done next Friday. We just have to stay at it. So
yeah, I agree. I mean,
Sure.
the comment before was correct. These first 2 rounds are a lot of positioning for the fights that come later, and there's some pretty big fights, so there's not a lot to cover video wise. All this goes here, and in the actual game, we rolled a lot of dice, but we get to save that time here. So I do think when we start to fade from positioning to the showdowns, it'll probably move faster too for the later rounds, particularly that last round. I feel like that was just all fights.
it was chaotic.
Yeah.
And I am going to try to, for next Friday, have that, like that last battle, have that embedded in the keynote so that I can press play and we can watch that video together.
Nice.
That's the idea. We'll see if it works. We're going to give it a try. But no, I think that'll be good, because it was crazy. And we only had one camera on this game, and it was a single down shot. So the recreation of this game took 3 times longer than normal, because if you've seen the setup at Gen Con, we normally have 3 cameras. So like being able to see from the side allows you to see how many chips are in a stack, and you get a better angle. And the video quality wasn't real great from the straight down shot. So this is as accurate a representation as I can make of this game. So I'm sure that this isn't exactly what happened, but it's pretty close. So, all right. Thank you, Paul. I'll give that a double check and make sure that is what we were thinking of. Just heads up on round 1, you had the USSR at 18 IPCs. Did they have that, or did they have 20?
I remember there being.
I thought they had 20.
I felt like
24.
I feel like there was some discrepancy somewhere in the end of round math for round 1 didn't quite.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Something might have been off with that. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of copy paste and all of that. So I'll make sure that's
because we had Riatia and Archangel, and something about the math on that didn't quite seem right. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's always tricky because of China, right? It's like, I wish it was easier, like a +4, -4, right? You're up this, I'm down this, it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
So. Anyway, all right. So any other questions, comments, things you want to talk about in the chats, please let us know. Otherwise, we are going to bring the show to an end. Thank you for the super chats. John, thank you for dropping in the couple bucks there. We had a couple other fine folks. Some great gift memberships from the General's Hide and our friends in Minneapolis. We appreciate you guys being here. Mr. Coffee, Australia is in the house. We appreciate that. I did get a note from our friends in Europe saying, okay, so 7 p.m. Central Time, that's 2 a.m. in Amsterdam. So let me ask this question to the group. If this happened on Saturday morning at 10 a.m., would you be as likely or less likely or more likely to watch? because that would give us Europe as well, because they would then, it'd be 6 o'clock, 6 or 7 o'clock in Europe. So I'd be curious.
I'll say I would be less likely, but I'd still be here.
Less likely.
Yeah,
That
it'd
would
be
probably
tough
be
to-
the same for me. But I would try and be there, and most likely I would probably have at least it on my phone listening.
Right. Okay, so while we're thinking about that, I wanted to mention General Brian Hyde is about to take a trip paid for by his rich uncle to Africa, where he'll be stationed for, it's like 6 or 8 weeks. So he's in the Minnesota National Guard, and he's being deployed for about 6 or 8 weeks in East Africa. And so we are wishing him well on that trip. He leaves in the relatively not so distant future, in the next short period of time. So he'll be out of communication for a big chunk of that time. So we will keep a kind thought for him, and please give him your best and let him know that we are thinking about him and hoping everything is running well for him, and that he absolutely has safe travels. That's exactly right. And we will make sure that we keep Tracy busy while Brian is out of town. So we'll send her lots of fun things to work on. So awesome. All right. Well, I think we will leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this evening. We will regroup next Friday. Same bad time, same back channel. Yeah.
Excited to see it.
I promise this game gets nuts, guys. So I hope you make it back for us next Friday, and we will have another. I will have another announcement for you next Friday night. Hopefully, I'm trying to nail it down in the next couple of days, but we'll have another announcement about Battlefront Dayton, and we're trying to nail down some special guests for that trip, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure that you're checking on us next Friday, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So. Thank you again, gentlemen, for your time. We appreciate you being here, and for all the members that have stuck around and made it through round 2 with us. We will get through the rest of the game next week, and we will come back to our 4-shot. There we go. Make sure, gentlemen, please also thank our guests for being here this evening.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Fun.
Yep. And you guys. I love it. All right, guys, have a great night. We will talk again real soon.
You too.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.